definitely there's a progression on the record where the longer we were at the house, the more unhinged and stupid the songs became.
Hi, I'm Will, and I'm here for the latest in NME's In Conversation series with Stefan and Zack from PUP. How are you?
Good.
This is the best I've ever felt.
And you're back in the UK after 3 years away?
Yep. Last night was our first show in Kingston, first show overseas since 2019, so felt pretty good.
Yeah, how was the show?
I had a great time. I usually have an awful time, but it was good. I had fun.
Have you had to build yourself up for going overseas again after COVID? Have you sort of planned it and put it off and planned it and put it off?
I mean, I think we had to build ourselves up just to like get back into playing shows in North America. That was a mindfuck. But I think, you know, kind of once you start going, it's just like no time has passed. You just fall back into terrible old habits and end up here.
Do you remember the first show back? Where were you playing?
Oh yeah, we played this tiny club in Toronto called the El Macambo, which is like the legendary El Macambo. It was wild. It was fun. A lot of people, just like packed room, and coming back to it in that way was special.
I
Yeah.
think it was the first time I was nervous in like 8 years of playing shows.
Yeah, I definitely played like way too fast. I'm like, it was obscene.
Yeah. I know Steve from the band was part of a roundtable recently with artists talking about things fans might not know about the way you're having to plan your way around tours and things you might still have to do. Are there things that you wish people knew about how tough this is being for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to expect the audience to take on a lot of responsibility, either like psychically or logistically or otherwise. And I don't feel like we're so lucky. It's hard to, you know, complain that much about it. But it is as fun as it looks. It is a hard job, and COVID has made it that much harder. So I don't know. It's just like all I'd say is like to our audience members is be respectful of each other and take each other's health into account. I think that's like the big thing we worry about the most.
COVID aside, did the break allow you to maybe rethink certain things about the way you want to? You were saying bad habits, like a bit tongue-in-cheek, but are there things that you were thinking about on the time off, thinking if we can play shows again, this is how we should change?
Yeah, I mean, I was terrified that our last show ever was going to be in Eugene, Oregon. So 2 years of kind of thinking on that, but it was, you know, it was really nice. Like I feel like we needed that break. Like we might not be a band if we hadn't taken that break, you know. We kind of like are always like, we all love each other very much and are also always on the verge of killing each other. So a forced break for 2 years was really good, and we all kind of like sort of, I think, probably learned a lot about ourselves. Like it was really nice to have that. It was the first time I've had that time to just sit and write songs and do that kind of thing, and that was really, it was, you know, obviously it was a terrible time, but it was also a pretty rewarding time for me, I think. And
like break is relative. Like we were still working. Like we probably took a month and a half off, and then we were writing and just trying to like. But it is a huge thing in terms of just recuperating to not be on tour. Because surprisingly, being on tour is not that good for you, physically or mentally. So I think that, as Stefan is saying, that was good for the four of us.
Yeah. And was it nice to know that even though you couldn't tour, the world was shut down, after a month and a half, you really wanted to go back? And there wasn't like, the tour's coming up, we should have some new songs for that, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I'm enjoying being on tour for, you know, and feel very lucky to be doing it again, and didn't always feel that way, you know, 2019, like we took a lot of things for granted, so it's been a lot of fun the past couple of months.
Yeah, it's like coming back to writing it was like good to know that we still have each other, but it's also at the same time, it was so early on that it's like is it going to come back ever? It's like, are we spinning our wheels trying to write things, or like, you know, the existential thing of it all. But it was, as I got closer to touring, it lightened a little bit.
Yeah. But, you know, without the prospect of touring and without PUP as a business as such, do you think that made you realize that you would be writing songs if this stopped, internationally touring, whatever, if it was just for you again?
Yeah, I think I'd still want to write songs and play with these guys. And, you know, you say that we were not a business for those 2 years, but we were the world's greatest web store. So
I heard that was a shelved title for the album.
that's right. Yeah.
Yes.
Still kind of regret not making that the title.
Yeah, one of our agents was like, "That's no," and we respectfully agree with him.
I know that some silly ideas get thrown around the band. Is there one person in particular that's like the sense checker for you?
I mean, Stefan is the most sensible person in the band. Well, we're all very sensible in some ways and very not in many other ways.
I think we just trust, like, we have a lot of, like, people that we love and respect around us that we trust. So when somebody says, that's stupid even for you guys, then we know, like, okay, maybe we took it too far that time.
Yeah,
if somebody's like, that's stupid, then we're like, yeah, of course it is.
Yeah, sometimes we gotta farm it out to someone outside the band to really check, like kick the wheels on the most idiotic idea possible.
The album's been out for 3 months now. Do you need that kind of space to realize what you've made, or do you know when it's finished?
That's hard, because we're all tinkerers. Like, the four of us we just work until, well, we work and we don't know when it's done, so we just keep working until someone else tells us it's over a lot of the time. But this one, I think, was different because it felt pretty far to complete before we started recording, and then it really started making sense when we were at the end of recording. So I think before these tours, it definitely felt like a real record to us.
Okay, yeah. And whereabouts were you when you were writing the song, Stefan? Are you still living in Toronto?
Yep, still living in Toronto, and I have a little cabin in northern Ontario in the middle of nowhere.
Oh,
so
beautiful.
a little refuge. Yep, pretty much there, and yeah, just sending songs back and forth over email and hoping for the best.
Yeah. And did you notice straight away that the extra time you were afforded was changing the way you were writing or what you were writing about?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
You know, the other records we were super proud of, but we wrote them really quickly between tours because we were just touring so much. And, you know, you come home from tour and it's like, okay, well, we have 2 months to turn in another album. Like, we better start going. This one was nice, and I think especially sonically, like musically, we had a lot more time to tinker. Like, especially Zack and Nestor started getting their hands dirty with some like MIDI stuff and keyboard stuff that we've never done in the past before. And I bought a piano for the first time and wrote some terrible songs on piano. And yeah, we all kind of just, like, I think definitely instrumentally got a little further into the weeds.
Okay. Have you kept up the piano after you wrote those 3 songs?
Yeah, man, I know 6 chords now.
Hey, well, that's for the next album,
Yeah,
I guess.
That's right.
A lot of the stuff on the album, you talk about, you know, the board of directors and as a business and filing for bankruptcy, stuff like that. Is that something that's been tough as you've become more successful to come to terms with the idea of the business side of the band and, like, being that kind of thing? Like, because, you know, you start out as a DIY punk band and that's like the last thing you want to be thinking about.
Yeah, I mean, I think most bands start out like that, like it's an excuse for friends to drink beer in Nestor's parents' basement or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's always kind of been on our mind. It's tough. I mean, it's not a new concept, this like kind of meeting of art and commerce, but yeah, it's always on our mind. It's like because we have to try so hard to separate like the music that we want to make from the business goals that we have. And when the two start to kind of infiltrate each other, it just causes problems, you know? Like, every song we've ever tried to write with the business in mind has failed miserably and has caused a lot of just problems within the band too. So it's always a struggle to kind of keep those two separate, but definitely as things become more and more successful, they both start to kind of rub against each other.
There's also the side where, like, you know, we're trying to run a business and as like, I don't want to say, like, ethically, as ethically as possible, and like be responsible to the people that quote unquote work for us, who are also our friends, and like, you know, be respectful in those ways. And that's another thing that represents the business, and we got to keep an eye on that. So that is like, that's its own stress, but it's like we got to do it.
Yeah.
There's no question.
But like Zach just said, like, we get to work with our friends now.
Yeah,
That's
that's
a positive
awesome.
thing. Like, you know, like we go on tour and it's like 10 of us now, and it's the 4 of us and 6 of our best friends. Like, it's a pretty incredible experience, and we're very lucky that we get to do that with our friends. And
We also get to tour with like some of the best bands on earth, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So-
I was going to ask, some of the collaborators on the record are from bands you've toured with or will be touring with. What did you want from your collaborators, and how did they come into the process?
yeah, it was a few friends from different bands just singing on the album. Like, wanted to make the record feel a bit more like a party than it was, because, I mean, just because of the circumstances, it was just the 4 of us and Peter, who produced the record, in the studio. You know, on previous albums, we'd go and do gang vocals and invite a bunch of our friends, and it would be just like a fun time like that. And this time around, we couldn't really do that, so we had a lot of our friends just kind of sing in their own spaces and send us in tracks and try to kind of recreate that kind of community vibe.
Right, yeah. And recording the album, you went to a mansion in Connecticut with Peter Katis.
Yeah.
Did you know that you wanted to do something different? Because the same person produced your first 3 records, right?
Yeah,
Did you,
yeah.
from when you were writing demos, did you know that this needed a different, like, polish?
Yeah, I mean, I think we were trying to like carve a slightly different path, and Peter's worked with some great bands. I mean, Dave is an incredible producer and like a close friend to us, obviously still. But just carving a different path and like see what we can do outside of the PUP box, but still make it sound like us. And that, I think we achieved that in a way. And there's always like growth to be done, but it's, yeah, I think from the start it was a goal for that record.
Yeah. And how was the experience of being there? It's residential, right?
Yeah, we were living there and recording at all hours, so it was kind of like a 24/7 job, which was very different than our normal, like, you know, recording in Toronto. We're there at the studio from like, you know, 10 till 8 or whatever the hours are. And this was different. Like, you know, if you have an idea at midnight, you go and you record it. Or like, I'm an early riser, so if I have an idea at 6 in the morning, I go do it, you know? It was great. A lot more freedom, I think. There's just like a lot more opportunity to work and try different things and not worry if whatever we're trying sucks, you know?
Yeah, there's also the part where like we're all somewhat, I think repressed is a bit of a strong word, but we're like, we kind of look to others to confirm if our ideas are working. And this like forced us to try stuff out. And there's so much cool gear there that we just screwed around until we found something cool, and throw it to Peter. He would say yay or nay or whatever, and we just like throw it on there, and usually it worked out, which is surprising. So.
Yeah. And if you listen to the album, can you tell stuff that was recorded at the start and then at the end? And do you see how your methods were changing throughout those like 5 weeks.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely there's a progression on the record where the longer we were at the house, the more unhinged and stupid the songs became. So yeah, there's definitely some weird choices on the album, and if they're confusing, it's because they happened after us being cooped up together for 5 weeks and you know, getting a little weird, getting a little squirrely.
Yeah. And there's a saxophone solo on the last song, right?
Yeah.
Would you put that in that bracket?
Yeah,
Zach's idea.
I think so. I mean, like, yeah, I assume that's where you're going, is like Bankruptcy is like one of the last songs we recorded in earnest. And we were kind of, I had this idea like all along, and I was trying to go for like a Mars Volta sort of weirdo, John Zornish, like that kind of world. And Steve knew a guy, and the other guys embraced it, surprisingly. I was just like, all right, let's do it. And yeah, it ended up working out, and which is cool, because there's also songs where we worked on it for the whole entirety of the month we were there. Like Relentless, it was like doing that kind of piecemeal over the entire month, and then some songs just came together quickly. Sometimes we revisited, so yeah, it was cool. But yeah, the sax solo, I'm quite happy. Made it onto the record.
And Stefan, lyrically, were there things after Morbid Stuff was done that you knew, places you knew you wanted to go, or was there kind of a reset in the pandemic and stuff just started falling out?
Yeah, there's a reset. I mean, I think every record is just kind of like a 6-month snapshot of where my brain's at.
Okay.
And yeah, definitely once Morbid Stuff was finished, I tend to not think about anything when we're on tour. I'm just like kind of in survival mode. So Morbid Stuff came out, and then we were on tour essentially until March 2020. And I was just holding on for dear life kind of thing. But one thing I was definitely thinking about when we started writing The Unraveling was like, I'm so sick of talking about how depressed I am. So, which was obviously that came up a lot during Morbid Stuff. And I'm also kind of in a better place than I was then. So I did, make a conscious decision to sort of steer clear of certain things that were going to just annoy me in the press world later on. Thanks very much.
And the thread running through it with the 4-chord songs and stuff, did that come early or late? Because it feels like a nice, way station as you go throughout the album.
Yeah,
it came together later, I think.
Yeah, I was remembering because Stefan had sent, he just as a joke sent us an email that said a song for my friends, and it was the first version of 4 chords. And then halfway through recording, it was I think we had discussed it, and Nestor was like, no, we have to make this the first song. So
that was when the poor decisions started happening,
and
were embraced by all of us.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing Pup's never had any instruments that aren't bass, guitar, drums, vocals on a record before. So naturally, it's a great decision to start with a piano ballad. But yeah, I think that song was written, I don't know when it was written, but the idea for it to kind of be a cornerstone on the record was definitely a decision that happened after several weeks in the house.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and were you properly cooped up, or I don't know what lockdown was like in Canada, were you able to get out at all?
Yeah, we went out, but it was not to be in public spaces. It was Stefan would go on hikes and I would go on walks and just stay away from people.
Okay. And Stefan, I've seen a lot of photos of you and a very beautiful dog on Instagram. You said you've got a cabin in the middle of nowhere. Has nature been quite important for you, getting your thoughts together for writing songs?
Yeah, for sure. I'm not sure that, less so on this album than previous albums. Maybe on previous albums, I was drawing some I don't want to say inspiration, but some sort of juice from being in nature. Now I kind of think more it's just like a quiet place for me to be and sort of turn my phone off and try and focus on writing. I have a really one-track mind, like I can't multitask at all. So to get anything done, I just have to be like completely focused for an extended period of time. So it kind of gives me that opportunity.
Yeah. And the song Matilda on the album is written about, or from the perspective of your guitar. Is she here with you today?
Yeah, I still play her every night. 1 or 2 songs a night. That's the maximum my bandmates will allow.
Including Matilda,
Including
right?
Matilda, yeah.
Can you tell us a story? How did you meet?
Yeah, sure. On our first American tour, we were on tour with this band called the Menzingers. And it was a pretty long tour, and we were pretty broke, and I only had one guitar. And it got broken at a show, and I didn't have any money to buy a new one. And a friend of mine just gave me this guitar, and he was just like, "You need this guitar more than I do." So he gave it to me. It's like his only rule was that I never sell it, and her name is Matilda, and I can't change it. And I just love the guitar so much. It was like it's also such a like a incredible act of generosity of somebody to do that. And so I love the guitar, but I also felt connected to it because of my friend Ryan. And I played it at every PUP show for like, I don't know, literally hundreds of shows, like for 4 or 5 years straight. So I'm pretty attached to the thing, even though, according to my bandmates, it sounds like shit.
I play drums. I don't know anything. I'm not owning that.
Did you have an idea to write that song years ago, or do you know why it struck you?
No, I think just like it was late 2019 when Steve and Nestor in particular, I won't drag you into this. Steve and Nestor
Who conveniently aren't here.
Yeah, they can't defend themselves right now.
So it's the perfect time to strike.
Yes. They convinced me to buy like a real guitar. Bunch of dickheads. No, they convinced me to buy like a good guitar because Matilda apparently wasn't sounding so good. So I bought a couple like nicer guitars, and I started using them live, and everyone in the band was a lot happier with me. And then after about, I don't know, I just noticed like after a while, like even sitting at home, I was playing those other guitars, and I just like started feeling really kind of sad and guilty about the fact that I hadn't even played Matilda in like probably close to a year, and there's just so much sentimentality tied up in it, and I felt like I was doing a disservice to my friend Ryan, who like gave me the guitar with the assumption that I was going to play it a lot more than he was playing it. So just kind of came out of this feeling of like kind of guilt and nostalgia, and that's kind of seems to be a good place for my brain to be when I want to write something depressing.
But not writing songs about being depressed.
Yes, exactly. Very clear differentiation.
I wanted to ask about your music videos, which is what draws a lot of people to your bands. We've had like Choose Your Own Adventure video games, a video where people covered your song without hearing your song, loads. Firstly, are there any more ideas in the pipeline that you can share?
Yes, there are, but no, that we cannot share them.
Okay.
They're too good.
Follow up then, are there any you can share that someone in your orbit said no?
I don't know. I feel like we just like choose. We just do ideas that and work with people we know will say yes.
Okay.
So like the Totally Fine video, Jeremy, who's done so many of our videos, we know he'd say yes because it's stupid, and he's like, I will help you be stupid as usual, and that's what happened.
We definitely live in this world of music videos where when there's a music video idea, no one says no to us, which is troubling at some times, but then really exciting at other times.
Yeah. As a band and as friends, is that what you're going for? Just being able to be in a space where you can be like your goofy selves, but then like your songs mean a lot to people and you talk about important things. Like, do you feel like you've been building up getting that balance, and do you think the balance works well now?
Yeah, I mean, I think it works really well, and I think the music videos, like, you know, we're in a position where people are giving us a few $1,000 to just be done with our friends. Like, we're just trying to take full advantage of that and have a good time and make sure that there are, you know, as many parts of this band that being a band that we can enjoy. We try to enjoy as much of it as we can. And also, I think making music videos is like an opportunity for like the four of us to really show who we are as a band. I mean, it definitely comes across on the records too, but the snare drum is not lyrics.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think like it's an opportunity for like the band as a single unit to present a personality, and it's been a lot of fun.
I think especially the Unraveling is like the most us record that we could have made at this point. And in the same way, the videos, like, there is something very meaningful in making each other laugh, and also representing like a song like Matilda in the form that it took in the video. And it's like if it's fully us, it's more meaningful to us, and that makes it better.
So you covered Metallica's Holier Than Thou for the Blacklist. Were there inter-band arguments about which song you would choose? And who's the Metallica head? Or maybe all of you are?
I don't know, like Nestor and I probably listened to the most Metallica. There was like a bit of discussion, but this one just made sense.
What do you like about that song?
I don't know, it's a cool, I really like what we did with it. It's like it's a cool song. It's like a bit of a B-side, but it's also, there's like some magic to it. Live, there are like points in the song that every Metallica fan agrees is like the coolest part of the song, and as long as it's there, like they're stoked live. And so it's a bit of like a cult Metallica classic, and it's got cool riffs in it, and I like that we added some kind of Beastie Boys and all that stuff to it.
Yeah.
What did you call them earlier today? The Metallica Brothers?
Yeah, that's like a French-Canadian joke, is the Metallica Brothers. It's a very deep Canadian joke.
And you're in the UK now for a small show tonight in London and 2,000 Trees tomorrow, and you're back later this year for what I think is going to be your biggest tour of biggest venues so far?
Yeah.
Yeah. What can we expect from the shows? Is the piano coming out?
Tonight? There's
At all.
The stage doesn't even fit all four of us. So not tonight, but in the fall, not the piano, but hopefully a piano.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that part of your ambition as well, to keep the live show growing and evolving? Because, you know, like you were saying, there haven't been instruments bar guitar, bass, drums on a PUP record till this one. Is that something that you really want to showcase live, that you've been able to add more bits and bobs to it?
It's hard. We want it to be realistic for the four of us to play it, like actually play it, no tracks, like actually performed and sung by us. But who knows, like, I'm not gonna be closed to expanding, but there's something I think special to it just being the four of us.
Yeah.
I think on this record, performing these songs, like, we've managed to figure it out without changing too much. Like, Zack has a sampler pad by the drum kit, so he covers some of the synthier parts, and Steve's just like a pedal wizard, so he can make his guitar sound like a saxophone, apparently. And so, yeah, so we've managed to figure it out still with just the four of us and guitars, and only adding the sampler pad. So it's been fun.
Yeah. All right, well, thank you so much for taking the time.
Yeah, thank you.
And we'll see you later this year back in the UK.
Yeah, sounds good.
Thanks so much.